Oh, welcome to part 2. It's a bit long since I did part 1, but I had some issues with a bit of surgery on my leg and my back, so it put me out of action for a while. So I'll kick off straight away. I looked at the other one, it was a bit too long, part 1, so I'm going to try and condense it down, because what we're up to now is we've put the correct shims back in. When you put the shims in, don't forget to put some oil on the shims, put them in. So now we're up to putting the camshaft, the journals back on. So I thought it would be easier if I can turn the engine and leave that on. And so the last time we were here, we had this is the intake. Remember, we put the white lines on there which were even. So you want to put these back on. You've got your intake and your exhaust side, so your intake goes on the top. Remember, we haven't altered from the FT line here, so we haven't altered and changed it, moved it around, because we'll get onto the rear. So I'll just get these organised and we'll just get onto this and how you line it up. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is you remember, put your C. Now that goes in on the top of the intake one. There's always oil in here. I'll have a quick see if this works. Oh God, where is it? There. So you're putting the C in, that's the intake. Pretty basic stuff. So we're putting this in. Remember, the lobes were pointing to roughly 10 and 2 o'clock, so the intake was on the 10. So you put it back in there, and then you can see these lines are not even, so play just around with them a little bit. Needs to go that way. You'll never get them equal, because you got to remember that when you put the white lines on there, the journals were pushing it down, so you get it. I'm probably getting my head in the way, so I might move that around one more. Way too much. We'll go to the next one. That's probably the best that you're going to get, because if you go too far, it's not going to do it. So you can see there, so plus the lobes are going to be pointing to that 10 o'clock mark, roughly, as per the book. So that's in. So now we'll put the intake journals down, which you want to install these on a cross pattern, because you need to pull them down as tight as. Okay, so I've done the journals. I haven't tightened them yet, but you'll see when you tighten them down, it brings the lines, so it brings that camshaft equal. So when it's not tight, you'll be stuffing around trying to figure it out. But once you get those journals down and tight, you'll see that they'll go back to how you were. So excuse me, we'll tighten these journals, torque wrench 10 Newton meters, and go on a crisscross pattern. So the top ones are done down to 10 Newton meters in the crisscross hatch. Now we'll do the exhaust. Little C-clip. There's always oil in here, be careful. You don't slip, because it'll drop in there. So you got the exhaust with the lobes. Remember, the lobes there are sort of around about the 2 o'clock mark, but they should line up with there. So we'll just put that one straight in. What's that look like? I'll show you. So it's not tightened. If I try and put it like that, it'll be a bit off. That's one tooth. If I go back and then do another tooth, it's going to be off. So this one is going to be about that. And then we'll put the external with the, you can see that, the X that is on the way down. And now we'll just tighten these up to 10 Newton meters as well. So the intake and external journals have now been tightened crisscross pattern to 10 Newton meters. So we'll now put the cover on this, the gasket. Don't forget the little dowels that are there, and tighten that up, and then we'll move on to the rear. Just another thing, now that these have all been tightened up, the lobes are pushing the same way. You'll see, remember, not only did I do the liquid paper on the outside, but also did it in the middle, and the chain, it's gone back. So that hasn't moved. So I don't know if you can see that little white line in there. So that's the change. So now let's move to the, we'll put the top back on, and then we'll go to the rear. So we've still got it on the FT line. If you can see that, we haven't moved it. So now we're going to do 3/4 of a turn anti-clockwise to bring it to RT, which should bring it up to TDC on the rear cylinder. So I'll just turn this 3/4. So that's 3/4. Let's have a look. See if I can get that. So that's RT. So that's in the middle. The angle doesn't look it, but when you look it straight on, it is. So now we'll get to the rear cylinder by taking the covers off. So now we'll just take the rear off. We haven't touched it any further. So we've taken the cover off. Don't forget to take these 2 dowels out. Okay, so drop. Now, you've cranked it to the RT line, so you can see this. The lobes for exhaust and the intake are roughly pointing as per the book. I don't know if you can see these. So they're at, the exhaust is round about the 2 o'clock, about the 2 o'clock, and the intake is roughly about the 10 o'clock. So they're in the right position to begin to take the journals off. But before we do that, we know that they're in the right position, so let's get our liquid paper and put our lines, because to mark them so they're in the right position. So now we're going to take these off, but first of all we're going to mark these with the liquid paper. So first of all we want to do a lot, but we'll put where the middle one is, with this line here. You'll see the line just here on the side of the case. So we're going to just put the liquid paper in there. That'll show us for that. And then we'll do these teeth. So I've dabbed a bit into the middle to line up with that line, and I've done the last visible tooth on each of those. So now we'll take the journals out. So remember, before we take the journals off, we've got to do the shim measurements. So remember the top one that I had, that was for the front. I've just drawn a quick one up for the rear, and we'll put these, measure these shims in. So making sure that the lobes are pointing as per the manual, which is basically this. This is on the RT. So we will measure the lobe first. This is the top intake's got to be between 10 and 20. So this is a 15. Slides through quite easily. All right, so let's go to a 20. Oh, that's a 20 as well. Goes through 20. So I might go to a 25, hopefully. Nope. So these shims were out. So I've done the measurement and you can see the new shim that I need to bring it in to the spec. That's a big one. And 150 and a 250. I've got those 4 shims. Apart from that, I've got a 170. I'll see what it does. So now we'll just put these shims back in. And remember, when you're putting the shims in, dab some oil on it. The numbers face the bucket. So you put the shim down with the numbers facing you here, so you're looking at the number. So don't forget, we'll put in the little C-clips, line up the cams, tighten the churnels down to 10 Newton meters, or 7.5 pounds, I think that is. And we'll have a look at that liquid paper so they line up. So we'll just do that now. Don't forget, we've got these dowels that go in here as well as the top part. Journals have been tightened to 10 Newton meters, and we've put those back, which has squashed these down, which is lined up our, so we know they're in the same space. The lobes are pointing exactly the same because that's how we put them back. I don't know if you can see. Maybe I might spin it round. Might be a little bit better. So now what we'll do is we'll wind it around, and then I forgot to say, on the first one, this cover here, you don't have to put that on, because after you've done it, now you want to wind it around. I'll go into a bit later, and then go in and test the clearance again, so you know that they're in. So we'll do that. I'll take this cover off first. So because that was on the RT when we were doing, oops, I can't remember, that was on the rear, we had that on RT, so we were doing that. So then you roll it around to take it back to FT. Sometimes it can be a 1 full turn. If it's not, just do 2 turns. But what you want once you're turning is you want your front lobes to be pointing out at around about like 10 and 2-ish, which would mean that your middle line is in line with the where do we see that middle line is in line with that, and you've got the teeth back in oil. And then when you've done the rear, the intake lobe, this one should be pointing down, and the exhaust should be pointing out about 9 o'clock. But you'll also have the little white line that you made before in line with that, and your teeth are going to be so I don't know if you can see those, the lines there on the marks, they're going to be level, not your teeth, what we did with the liquid paper. That was to fit them. But then once you've turned all of that and you get to that, you should have your lobes correct, these lobes correct, the line marked up, and the line marked on the actual cam lining up with your belt. Forget about your liquid paper. And then once you've done that, oops, where are we going? then we just measure these again to see that they're in spec. Put the covers back on, put the dowels back on. That's it. But we'll see how we go and we'll do the measurements now. So I've measured my shims. I haven't measured the front one. And then because I'm doing the rear again, remember, move it around, move it to the RT. So the new measurements, we put in a 270, I got 0.05 and 0.13 for the front. Then we needed 280 and we got 0.23, and then 285 I got 0.26. On the rear, with those new shims, I got 0.12 and then 0.14, which is in spec for the intake, excuse me, and the exhaust. I had to bring this one right up because it was 20, so that's gone to 24. This one here, I haven't got that, but I put in that other shim, so put it up to 0.27. So see how we go. But I'm not too fussed about this because this has been pulled apart anyway. So this was more to do with how you do with the shims. So once that's done, it's a matter of just putting these back on, and that's it. And you don't forget that, and don't forget your cap. So hopefully that helps. That's basically about it on doing a shim. So that's it. So I hope it wasn't too long between the last part one. I'm sorry that I couldn't get around to doing it. There was a bit of soreness, but all good now. So hopefully that helps someone. Thanks.